Now this is our AMG GT S, which has just been delivered to us by Mercedes on the back of a truck. You can see the lineage to the old SLS quite clearly. It shares some of the same components, but obviously a lot has changed since the SLS. Much swoopier looks for starters, very aggressive front end. I'm not quite sure it entirely gels with the kind of softer back end on the car, but from the front it looks fantastic. As we walk down the car we can see that this one has got the optional ceramic brakes. That's another 6 grand onto the price. Starting price for 110 grand, remember. Here, the really significant bit of news, V8 bi-turbo. Of course we've ditched the old 6.3 litre naturally aspirated V8 that was in the SLS, and we've got the new 4 litre twin turbo V8. Big question is, will it sound as good as the old naturally aspirated one? We'll let you in on that in a very short while. Moving around to the back, S badge. This of course denotes that this is the full beans 510 horsepower version, not the puny 463 horsepower entry level version. They'll be in the country later on in the year. This one also has the sports exhaust with its all active flaps inside that we can control from the inside. So let's have a look and see the cabin. Okay, so here we are in the AMG GT S, and your first impression is quite how low you sit in it. You're very enclosed in this snug little driver's cockpit area. It looks good actually, it's really stylish. Mercedes have really upped their game with their interiors of late, and they've obviously worked hard to make it feel special on the inside. It's got this screen here, which is a Mercedes thing these days on everything from an A-Class upwards, even on the GT. Mercedes argues that it puts the information in your line of sight. This car being a press car, it has been specced up considerably from its £110,500 starting price. AMG silver carbon fibre trim package, that costs you another £2,995. AMG performance seats, £1,895, so not cheap, and a premium package for another £4,195. Add a few other bits and bobs, the total is £132,010. So bear in mind a 911 turbo starts about 120 grand. You can see it's been priced pretty aggressively. I like it. I mean, one of the big questions on this car compared with the SLS is of course all this here, which is all the driving modes. AMG used to be about simple stuff, big engine, accelerator, off you go. Now we've got all these different settings to play with. So probably the best thing is to take it out for a drive. So what have we got? It's Aston Martin V12 Vantage S then.
Looks like it, yeah.
573 horsepower, 6 litre V12 against 510 horsepower V8.
I think we should go for a play.
So England versus Germany. Battles don't get much more evocative than that. But why are we pitching a brand new Mercedes-AMG GT S against the lovely but admittedly long in the tooth Aston Martin V12 Vantage S? Well, fundamentally, for all the technological differences, they're quite similar cars. They're both traditional GTs. They both hark back to that classic 1950s era of Mercedes and Aston Martin racing against Ferrari, Maserati, Jaguar and all those lot in the Le Mans 24 hours, Nürburgring 1,000 kilometers, Targa Florio and races like that. They've both got big 500 horsepower plus engines up front, driving the rear wheels through automated transaxle gearboxes. They've both got supercar levels of performance, wrapped up in luxury and style aplenty. But perhaps more significantly than that, Mercedes and Aston Martin have joined forces now, and the next generation of that Vantage up there will use the engine, transmission and more from this GT S. Do we want that though? Do we want our Aston Martins all high-tech like this Mercedes? Or do we want them raw and uncouth like that V12 most definitely is? That is the big question. England versus Germany. New school versus old school. Analog versus digital. Let battle commence. Mercedes-AMG GT S shares some foundations with the old SLS, but is a massive technological leap for AMG. The hot V turbo engine sounds epic, and pulls hard where you have to rev the Aston out. Traction is the biggest difference between this and previous AMGs. It's no 911 turbo on this wet track, but given how much power is going through the rear wheels, it has so much more speed out of the corners than the Aston, it's almost embarrassing. It's not quite the sideways monster previous AMGs have been, but frankly, does that matter? If we're being picky, the steering is still a bit light, and the ride is pretty burly on the road. It's high tech, but it's still fun. A lovely mix of old school and new school. The first Aston Martin V12 Vantage was, frankly, a bit terrifying. This S is much, much better. Not dumbed down, just slightly less psychotic. That monstrous V12 has more power than the GT too, not to mention a lot more character. The gearbox is a bit old-fashioned. Downshifts are quick, but it's jerky on the upshifts unless you work with it. No doubt, this is old tech compared with the AMG's dual clutch, a theme repeated in the cabin. It feels more knife-edge than the Mercedes too, the mechanical diff quicker to spin up the rear wheels. It's still a car you need to respect and think about before unleashing all that power. But that's a good thing. A V12 Aston Martin should leave your palms a bit sweaty. Well, that was fun, wasn't it?
Not a bad day.
Yeah. It's definitely quicker, it's definitely got more
Yeah.
traction and the
You really noticed the torque as well. The
Yeah.
torque's incredible, yeah.
gearbox is faster and all that kind of thing. But we were looking at England versus Germany, but we're talking about the future, about technology from this going into that. I think England and Germany, probably win-win really, isn't it?
I think it is. I think this is going to be missed though. Big V12 engine like that, we're going to miss it when it's gone. You know, that big naturally aspirated V12, we're not going to see that thing again. And the noise it makes just gets you every time. Every time you get on the power, it's fantastic. But
the future does look bright.
it does look very bright indeed.